Hi, I'm Greg Schaffer. Welcome to the Virtual CISO Moment. Travis Stein joins us today. He's a senior security engineer. He's taken an uncommon path through the industry, beginning in IT at the help desk and systems admin before moving into cloud security, privilege access management, zero trust architecture, and security engineering roles with organizations including CyberArk, Delinea, and Ahead. Along the way, he's helped organizations achieve SOC 2 compliance and ISO 27001 compliance while developing a practical philosophy that security must enable the business, not slow it down. He is passionate about mentoring others entering cybersecurity and writing candidly about what it really takes to run security in a lean environment. Travis, welcome to the Virtual CISO Moment. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Hi, Greg. Appreciate you having me on. It's an honor.
Well, it's an honor to have you, sir, and would like to start as we always start off. I want to hear your story and like how and why you got involved into this really weird field sometimes it seems like, and just bring us through to where you're at.
Yeah, sure. So my path through the industry, started off with, I guess, fairly humble origins and being IT help desk to start out my career back in 2012, 2013. I got my first IT help desk job, and I got it just kind of cold applying off the street back when cold applying was much more successful, you could say. And so, did IT help desk, system admin work for probably about 8 or 9 years. Got a lot of really good experience in that realm from about 2013 to 2021, and then kind of over the years, even though the experience was good, the burnout was pretty real for me, like with IT help desk and the whole mental health deal that comes along with that, with that burnout sometimes. And so back in like 2020, 2021, I was like, well, I'm just kind of going to different jobs, but the burnout is the same. I probably need something new, something different. And, cybersecurity was something that always really fascinated me. Like, I got into IT because I liked helping people, and I got into cybersecurity because I like helping and protecting people from threats, the bad guys, all that kind of fun stuff. And so, I went to, I think back in 2021, I was on LinkedIn networking with folks, just talking to them for coffee chats, kind of asking them about like, hey, I noticed you're in this position. What do you like about it? Pros, cons. Do you have 20 minutes of time to talk with me and just kind of give me a lay of the land of different cybersecurity roles and areas out there? And I was networking with one person that turned out to be my future boss at the time. He's like, hey, we might have a spot as a sales engineer at Ahead, and you're welcome to interview. No guarantees, but you're welcome to kind of get an interview. I can get a foot in the door for you. And then it kind of came, the rest was history after that. I stayed there for a little while, and then, went to a few other places like CyberArk and Delinea, and then did a most recent tour at Poly, and now I'll be starting a new job soon. So stay tuned for details on that.
Well, congratulations about that. That's certainly an interesting path, and I want to go back to the beginning there where you talked about being part of the IT help desk, and I'm wondering, is there anything from those days that has helped you now where you are in cybersecurity?
Yeah, sure. I think biggest thing is bringing that analytical mind, like a troubleshooting sort of mind to the equation, because there are a lot of common skills, at least from IT, that I think a lot of people can use in cybersecurity. And certainly I was able to take advantage of just having and a an analytical mind, I should say, and just being able to troubleshoot well, being able to think critically through issues, through problems. And sure, there's the plethora of technical skills that's needed for most cybersecurity roles too. But yeah, there's some common ground there between when I started my IT career in 2013 and all the way up to 2021 that really, I think, served me well and yeah, being analytical, being willing to troubleshoot and being able to find out the answer. Like sometimes there've been plenty of times in cybersecurity where I've been stumped. I didn't know the answer. I had to ask for help and
Mhm.
look things up. So being able to research what you don't know, being able to lean into what you don't know instead of, some people can panic when they don't know something, but I always took it as a challenge too to kind of grow and get better at my craft.
Oh gosh, yeah. I mean, I kind of chuckled a little bit when you're saying, ask questions, don't know. I mean, I've been in this industry for getting close to 40 years now, and it's like I still ask questions. I don't know. Sometimes I forget things. And like, oh yeah, that's right. I remember that now. And it's okay to ask questions. It's worse to try to fool your way through it, I think.
It is, and people pick up on that when you. I mean, there is a kind of fake it till you make it component to some jobs, but if it's 100% fake it till you make it, people pick up on it. But yeah, like being able to ask questions, like most people are pretty willing to help as long as you're showing that willingness to be like, hey, this is what I tried first. And then people are pretty willing to help if there's like, okay, so you've tried these three things, you're still stuck. Yeah, let me step in, and just showing that willingness to kind of do some research on your own first. And then it's like, hey, questions are good. There's no real dumb question in cybersecurity because we've all been there where we're like, I don't know what the answer to this problem is. I need to phone a friend.
Yeah, and I have a difficulty remembering between red and blue teaming which one is offensive and which one is defensive. And probably most folks that are newer in the field, including you, you're like, well, gee, Greg, that sounds kind of stupid. It's obvious. But I have to remind folks, it's like I come from an era where we didn't have red team or blue team or anything like that. We just called it troubleshooting. So sometimes you have to take into account the background of the person, and as you said, yeah, I don't think that there's really ever a stupid question. It's all about continuous learning.
That's the biggest thing I would say is like if the moment folks stop learning is when it's time to retire, hang it up, or change careers because like that curiosity will go a long way, whether it's an IT field, cybersecurity related field, or job. Like having that curiosity is what drives me on a regular basis. It's one of the big reasons I moved into cybersecurity because I was just naturally curious about more things in cybersecurity than I was in IT. And of
Mhm.
course, the IT help desk grind probably didn't help the cause for so many years either. But I don't regret that time because it gave me a good like basis to enter cybersecurity. Like I had a lot of fairly well-rounded skills when I came in, and so yeah, I mean, being curious though is something that will serve a lot of people well, whether they're a nurse, a lawyer, a doctor, IT, cybersecurity engineer. Like it's a good transferable skill to have for sure.
Yeah, I like to call it the investigative mindset. I think that everybody needs to have that. I think I like that because it sounds like wordier. It makes me sound smarter when I say something like that. But you touched on something that I think is very interesting as well too, and you touched on burnout. And I know that can be a problem in IT and also in cybersecurity. It's just really how I think there's some commonalities between how it builds and then how we deal with it. But um, did you notice any signs before as you were getting more and more burned out, or did it just sort of happen? I'm curious about that.
Yeah, one of the biggest thing I noticed in those 8 or 9 years that I was doing IT and help desk and system admin work was that I would change jobs every couple of years, and but the feeling was still kind of the same. I was like, well, this is a lot on a regular basis. The tickets are endless to a degree. I'm sure a lot of folks, if they're in IT help desk listening to this, they can probably nod along with us too. But
I'm
like
remembering.
yeah, it
We had a lot of ID10T errors, so it's like that got to be frustrating. So
and it's interesting because I genuinely like helping people, but like I found out that I have some limits. Like with cybersecurity, like there's still tickets. you never get away from tickets, right? And so but it's more project work, long-term work. It's not like, hey, let me fix a printer issue, or let me troubleshoot an Active Directory user account, or some identity access management principle or something. Like it's a different kind of beast, but it's also I think more enjoyable too. And I think over the years I noticed switching jobs, the satisfaction would kind of come back, and then it would fade, come back and fade, and it just kind of repeated that cycle until I was like, well, I think I need to do something else, because not only is the job hopping not looking super great on a resume to prospective employers, but I wasn't at my core all that happy with my career direction, because it was just a lot of burnout. And talking through with my support network and family and friends, and they're like, yeah, you're probably right, it's time for a change. And then so late 2020, early 2021, before I got to Hartree Partners for my first real deal in cyber. But it was just time for a change, and the job satisfaction would always kind of fade over the course of 1 to 2 years, clockwork. And that's how I knew. I was like, well, I've been interested in cyber for a while, and then I'm like, it's probably time for a change.
Yeah, and you mentioned that you leveraged LinkedIn, and I think LinkedIn is one of those tools that you get more out of it the more you put into it. And one of the things that I find disappointing sometimes is when I get contacts on LinkedIn from people that the only time when they get on LinkedIn is when they're looking for something, usually looking for a job and all of that. And I'm kind of the mindset that you should be constantly participating to keep your network active. I'm curious to hear from you if you have any LinkedIn nuggets of advice, because you mentioned something very important where it led to that foot in the door. Because once we get the foot in the door of a job, then now we're in control. But before that, it's we're at the mercy of the HRATS and whatever other stuff is out there, the bots out there, the fake job applications. I mean, as you said, it's a different world. You can't just pick up an ad right now and apply and be in there. But anyway, back to the original question. Any LinkedIn tips or tricks that worked for you?
Yeah, that's probably one of the areas that I like to think I excel at the most, maybe even more so than my actual job sometimes, is the art of kind of LinkedIn. And I created my first LinkedIn account when I got my IT career going in 2013, but I never really understood the value of LinkedIn until probably years later, when I actually started posting on the platform a little more, sharing what I knew with folks, and just kind of noticing trends and patterns of hey, a lot of people are getting jobs on LinkedIn. A lot of people are talking about networking. What's this all about? Should I kind of do this for my own career? And so that was something that kind of developed over the years. And I think it's really important, because LinkedIn has its pros and cons, certainly, but it's still one of the most influential professional social media platforms out there. And I've gotten probably at least 2 or 3 jobs from LinkedIn networking. And you just never know who you're going to meet on there, who might be in a position of influence to help your own career out, and things like that. And so I always encourage people, sure, it's important to have a resume. It's important to have a good resume. It's important to, go do home labs, have projects, have some certs from time to time. But really where a lot of the jobs are isn't so much, the job postings, because sometimes those are just resume farms for
Right.
employers, and they can decide maybe months down the line they may want to hire someone, may not. But networking with people gives you that advantage, because it kind of takes out the BS, I guess you could say, of trying to find a job, because then you get to talk to actual people. And what I started doing probably back in 2020, 2021 was really getting serious about LinkedIn. I noticed people were getting jobs, so being able to ask people just basic things like, hey, would you be willing to have like a 20-minute virtual coffee chat with me? Tell me about your, a day in the life of you as a, insert different positions here, but like, an analyst or security engineer or sales engineer. And a lot of folks were fairly willing to help. Like, and one thing I noticed too, and, this is kind of like a personal pet peeve of mine too, is that when I connect with folks, I try to, LinkedIn only gives you so many personalized invites, but when I connect with folks, like I try to pick out something from their profile, like, or like a post, and like, hey, I noticed you posted on AI governance, a week ago. I really liked what you had to say. Would you be willing to chat more with me sometime? Or, kind of take the time to show people that you're paying attention to them to a degree. It's that personal touch, and it leads to more replies too, as a bonus, because people might get, I'm sure you probably get as well, dozens, hundreds of requests per week, and it's a way to kind of sift through the people that just want to ping folks strictly for jobs versus folks that are, also pinging for jobs, but they're genuinely curious about the other person as well. And that goes a long way with folks. And it's certainly like, it's a really good tool when used well. And sometimes it's definitely playing the long game too, because you might send out 200 requests, hear back from 10 people, and out of those 10 people, maybe 5 can help you. But as long as you're making the effort, the rewards will eventually come.
Yeah, and that mirrors a lot of my philosophy with LinkedIn. One of the things that I'm constant about telling folks that I don't like is like, don't hit me up with a DM like selling me something immediately upon contact. I will accept requests from folks that I don't know in the real world if I think that we have some sort of an alignment and all that. But that's not an invitation first off to like start asking for stuff. Let's build that relationship a little bit, because for me, you mentioned jobs. When I'm looking for consultants to fill roles for virtual CISO engagements, I don't advertise that. I don't put it out like on Indeed or anything like that. I will put a LinkedIn post out to my network, because there are so many folks on my network that now I've gotten to know, and I can vet them better. And then when I get responses too, one of the first things that I look for is like, okay, so how active have you been on the platform? Have you been helping others? That's what I'm really looking for when I do the networking on LinkedIn. And I think it behooves other folks to understand that side of the coin, because that's, to your point, most of the jobs out there are not advertised. They're through that sort of word of mouth networking.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And, I think the word of mouth is so powerful, because cold applying, probably has like a 10-15% success rate. Maybe the numbers are a pinch higher than that, but it's not like a 90% success rate or anything, crazy like that. And, the value really is in networking. And, my advice to a lot of folks that network is that, sure, if you're networking and you're trying to break into cybersecurity, you probably want a job in cyber, right? Like that, there's no secret about that, but it's the way you can kind of go about it to folks, that personalized touch, taking some time to get to know the other person. And then people are generally more willing to help. And like you said, to your point, like, one thing I check when, people, want me to mentor them, or, look over a resume or give some advice is like, how active have you been on LinkedIn? What have you tried so far? Do you post any kind of, like content, portfolio content, home lab stuff you're working on? And, that's a big part of it too, is, really utilizing LinkedIn as a main platform. And, it's powerful when done well. And I don't, it used to almost be like a secret, like, to network gets you a better chance at maybe landing a job or, breaking into the field. But it really is true these days that like it's who it is what still, but it's also who and just being able to get that foot in the door, because once you're in cybersecurity, it's a lot easier to stay in cybersecurity. And so it's one of those things where it's like, once you land, it's not like you get like a 40-year career guaranteed in cybersecurity, but at the same time, it definitely helps the cause, because then you can put on your resume like, hey, I've been like a SOC analyst, or I've been a security analyst, or a cybersecurity engineer. And then each subsequent job becomes a little easier to land, because you've arrived in the field.
Well, and one of those things landing is like sometimes, and like I'm going to draw from your past where you've landed, and you find yourself like basically the security program, and so you've got to figure out all sorts of aspects of the security program. For someone who's a single person security department, what how do you do how do you approach that? Let's just say you start a job and you are the only person there. um, what do you start with first? What do you look for? What how do you survive?
Prior to, being at Poly before, taking this new opportunity soon, is that I had never been like the sole guy at a company. I had always been part of a team, of like 5 or 10, 15 folks. And, at my last job, it was just my boss and I guess we were a team of 1 1/3 people, because he was over 3 different teams including security, and then I was the sole security engineer. And then going into this next opportunity too, I will also be one of the sole security analyst engineers at this particular place. And it's interesting being this, going from kind of a team mindset. I mean, you always have a team mindset, but like going from being like as a part of a bigger group to having to make the buck, stops there with you, when you become the sole person at a company to lead a security team. And so probably, there's pros and cons. Cons are like you really have to trust yourself, because it's like if you make a decision that goes awry, or you do a decision that isn't fully like doesn't work out, it's on you. And it's not like, oh hey, the team lead came up with this, you can blame it on them. But you're the sole point of accountability. But it's something I've really relished in the last couple of years as I've had that lead experience, because one of the things that I really love about being like a sole person on the security team is that I get to really influence like policy and really shape security programs, and like leading, like ISO 27001 audits and SOC 2 audits. And, I thought, at first being the man, so the main man, so to speak, wouldn't be too fun, but it's actually quite a bit of fun. And like, I most of the places that I've been so far, where I've been the sole, analyst or engineer, like you're not completely on an island. Sure, so a lot of the security decisions lie with me, but at the same time, like there's folks to ping, bounce ideas off of. So even, if folks find themselves owning a security program by themselves for their next role, really lean into it, and I would say embrace it too, because it's a lot of fun to be able to like be at the forefront of things, versus like individual contributor is certainly awesome. Like nobody starts probably being the sole person right off the bat very often, but if folks get the opportunity, it's something I would definitely encourage.
So putting on your mentor hat now, you got somebody who's a technical specialist and they want to go into a leadership type position, like you were just talking about. What advice would you give them?
Yeah, so if they want to make the jump from being a more technical specialist or practitioner to a leadership role, I would say it's it's always the like act as if principle. Like being able to take, if you're on like an individual team and you want that team lead role, or you want like a managerial role someday in the near future, like acting as if like trying to tackle things potentially by yourself before like asking for help, or showing that initiative that like you can lead projects, for example. Because if you show leadership skills for like maybe a project that perhaps nobody wants to do, and you're the one to tackle it and take it on and really lead it from beginning to end, that goes a long way towards showing, I think, leadership skills. And being able to kind of volunteer. Sorry, being able to volunteer for different things and different projects, I would say is really one of those keys. And just showing that willingness to learn, the willingness to like adapt and be able to tackle sometimes the tough projects. And certainly in cybersecurity, this is one of the things that I'm currently working on too. But working on like the CISSP, for example. That's a really good, and it's obviously not necessarily like a year one kind of cert. You need some experience to sit for the exam and so on. But if you've got some cybersecurity experience and you want to move to a leadership role, that's a big checkbox too. It's not an easy checkbox, for HR, but it's certainly a big one too. In addition to just volunteering for things and showing that those leadership qualities early on, because you don't even necessarily need a certification to prove that you're ready to lead a team. It's
absolutely right. Yeah. Well, but all of this can come with more stress, though, and which is okay because we love our field and we know that there's going to be stress, but we have to channel that stress out and not let it overtake us. Otherwise, could lead to, as we were talking about before, burnout. I encourage folks to channel that stress in a positive manner, to decompress in a positive manner. What's one of the things that you do to manage your stress in this wonderful field?
Yeah, so there's a couple of things, and some of these were lessons that I took from IT help desk too. Being able to just, and especially working predominantly from home for the past 4 or 5, maybe even beyond 5 years, like it's a different kind of perspective for decompression. Like being like, this office is the same is in my home, and there's no separation except for the office door behind me between my house and work. Like it can be a little tricky sometimes, and so I try to just keep it simple with decompression, and that I'll go outside for 10-15 minutes on the patio, maybe bring my laptop with me, and even just that is like somewhat refreshing, relaxing kind of thing for me. And I've got a 2-year-old son at home, so I like to go out the door and play with him for 5-10 minutes, come back to work. And you don't need a kid to do that necessarily. If you have a dog or a cat, that'll work just fine too. But just literally the proverbial kind of remembering to touch grass, so to speak, like getting outside, getting out of the house, for me is really big. Certainly, exercise, and I feel like I've also got a much better support network than I had when I was doing IT help desk. Like I've got, doctors, a wife, and kid, and friends and family. And like, I've really, built those networks up over the years to help with burnout. And there's still, sure, there's still burnout in cybersecurity. I think a lot of folks will tell you, it's like, hey, he's talking about IT burnout. What about cybersecurity burnout?
There's definitely burnout,
and so, but it's been less. I mean, sure, there are some days where I'm like, I don't know how I got through that day. It was such a crazy day, but like, I have more days where I'm not burnt out than I do having burnout, when I was doing IT. And maybe that's just learning how to handle things better, because in IT, I would kind of work myself to the bone, and like I had to, close all the tickets, because I'm a fairly competitive person. So I was like, I'm not going to stop work until I close like 3 more tickets. And it just became like that thing that kind of, bit me in the butt a little bit towards the end, because I was like, I'm so burnt out. Like I'm trying to close all these tickets, and it just, I needed to come up with more techniques, and, being able to have like decent like mental health support too. Like I think that's kind of an underrated thing, whether that's a good family member or friend, your spouse, a therapist, anything like that. Like having those people in your corner, whether that's IT, cyber, being in any particular field, like it's really important to keep those things up, because like work can always be stressful, no matter what area, what walk of life you come from. And so, having some techniques, even if it's like stretching for 5 minutes, just walking outside for a handful of minutes, just a kind of a reminder that like there's a whole world out there outside of work, and it's not the end all be all. Like I used to get really wrapped up in work as like my sole source of identity. And now it's a little more balanced. There's a family man component. There's a friend, a father, a son kind of role that I play. And it definitely helps me a lot. Like I couldn't have probably made it into cybersecurity without a decent support network along the way. And particularly for folks that are searching for jobs, some people with the market how it is and the field being kind of saturated from tech layoffs, you might be looking for a while. And so it's really important to have a steady mental health game and have a good support network as well.
Absolutely. Work to live, don't live to work.
Exactly.
Future plans, talking about living to work or working to live. I know you said that you're transitioning into another position, so that's cool. What other plans you got going on?
Let's see.
Or is that the main thing right now?
That is more or less, the big ticket item is, starting a new job in a couple of weeks here. And let's see what else. We've got a trip planned to Dominican Republic in a couple of months. And then I hear the new job is potentially taking us somewhere in Europe for their anniversary. So that's never a bad thing to join a company and they get taken on a company trip to Europe like a month or two later. That's always a good thing. I highly encourage people to join companies where they're doing that.
Well, two things I need to respond to that. A, I'm jealous, and B, those folks that work for VC Social Services, no, we're not going to Europe anytime soon. Sorry.
Darn.
Well, listen, Travis, wonderful conversation. Appreciate you spending some time to chat with us. It's been a very interesting conversation. I learned a lot, and good luck on your new position. Sounds exciting.
Thank you so much, Greg. I really appreciate the opportunity to come on. It's truly an honor.
And everybody, stay secure.